Welcome to the Progtalks by the Progspace. Welcome to the Progtalks, an interview series by the Progspace where we will be talking to musicians in all corners of the progressive music scene.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progtalks. I'm your host, Dario. And before we start, I wanted to remind you again that you can actually support us by buying us a cup of coffee or tea in this case. We would be really grateful for that, and it helps us out a lot. But now I want to dive in to the musical guest of today, calling from Belgium, Romain from Omnerod. Hi, Romain. How are you doing tonight?
I'm really great, thank you. And you pronounced my name really, really well, actually. So I'm quite surprised that it's one of the first times someone that's not French-speaking says it that well. So it's really great to be here. I will try with the full name, okay? Romain Jeuniaux. Awesome, man. That's spot on. Great. Awesome.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks for being on the Progtalks.
It's my pleasure.
You guys have been around for a while now. I saw actually on the Metal Archives that Omnerod was founded in 2009 already. And you have 2 full-length albums out so far. But before we dive into that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you would describe your style, the style of music that you play, to someone who has never heard anything from your band before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of hard to describe any kind of progressive act without sounding too pretentious, but I will try. I think we are basically a blend of both classic and modern prog metal influences. More classic bands like Opeth and maybe in a way Dream Theater, and maybe more recent ones like Leprous and Between the Buried and Me. So basically mixing clean and harsh vocals with pretty long songs and quite a heavy emphasis on riffs and grooves, and hopefully some great dynamics along the way. So that's, I think, how I would describe the music, and with melancholy all along as well. I think it's kind of pretty sad all around. Nothing too happy there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, the first time I heard something from Omnerod, I had the feeling that I could feel the influence of both the classic and the modern vibe coming into an own style or sound, so to speak. But starting with your debut album in 2014, Ivory Dune now, and of course, especially compared to the second album, Arteries, from 2019, I think that was also a big step in terms of sound and production. When listening to Ivory Dune, I think there was a lot of more abrasive extreme metal also still going on, and like slower doomy parts. And in Arteries, you kind of found your own atmosphere, I had the feeling. What was the difference for you between these 2 albums, when, like, how you made them, the recording or writing process, doing these 2 different albums?
Yeah, you described the different directions really well, actually. There are many differences in terms of the process. Ivory Dune was composed since 2011 and until it was released in 2014. And we were about 17 to 20 years old. I think Pablo was about 15 or 16 at that time. And we were just basically kids that had just met and were jamming together in a rehearsal room and had many different influences and had no idea what they were doing, and had no idea what sounded good. They were just trying to do something that they hadn't heard before. So that was how Ivory Dune was composed. And it was also produced and recorded in our bedrooms with I wouldn't say cheap equipment, but maybe not the best gear with what we had actually, and with no initial knowledge whatsoever about how to record an album. And it was also pretty much a collective effort in terms of composition. So that was for Ivory Dune, and everything was very different for Arteries because, first of all, we were a bit older. We had listened to more music, and we, I think, knew better how to channel those influences. But also I think, the main composer for that album, as opposed to the first one being a blend of many different influences. And I was surrounded by people who really knew how to make an album sound good and use proper gear and everything. So that was definitely a step up. And we also had more means and more money to do the album, and more time as well. So that definitely helps. So yeah, it was day and night, very different processes and histories.
Yeah, and you even sent it off to master by Tony Lindgren.
Absolutely.
Who is a well-known and well-respected name for stellar audio production work in Sweden, right? So that was a big step up.
Absolutely, and he did a stellar job. Yeah, there's no secret.
2019 is also already 2 years ago, and I mean, we all know that last 1.5 years don't really count, especially when it comes to live playing. But you guys haven't been idle either. This year in 2021, you released 2 singles already. And I read that it is you kind of wrapped them up, or you see them connected in a series or in a project that you are calling the Construction Project. What can you tell us about that?
So to start from the beginning, actually, it stemmed from an idea we had back in 2020. We were planning on maybe touring and doing some live shows, and obviously, as you said, COVID changed everything. And we had, I was kind of obsessed at that time because we finally had some sort of dynamics in the band, and I wanted to have some content out. And I was struggling to find some things to talk about on the socials and everything during COVID.
I think I can agree from an outside perspective that I saw you like gaining a momentum with Arteries, and of course it's very understandable that you want to try to keep it going.
Absolutely. It was kind of frustrating for us because we had been a band for 10 years and we had done maybe 2 shows in the history of the band. And finally we had something going on, and then it stopped kind of suddenly. And I started doing some content that was not really relevant to the band and just with what I had in my hands. And so I did like covers and stuff like that. But I found it very uninspiring very quickly. I don't think it was relevant for the Omnerod page or anything. So I was looking for ideas to have some content out. And then we thought about releasing singles all the while we were working on an album on the side, and working with different processes and different people and different gear with those singles to maybe learn something from it and hopefully have something different created. And we ended up releasing, so as you said, 2 singles in 2021 and also a single back in 2020. And we're working on the 4th one, which will probably be out in the next month, I think. Every single has its own history, and we wanted to work on a song we had previously released, which was Lines, which was the first one. It was an instrumental song on Arteries, and we decided we wanted to maybe try something with vocals on it. So that was the first single we released. Then Company Accepted was kind of us trying to write a song with normal structures and maybe catchier melodies, which I think kind of failed, but it was kind of cool to try that as well. And You Make Me Feel was obviously us trying to do a rearrangement and cover version of a song that was not a metal nor a prog song from the get-go. And then the 4th one, which we're working on now, is actually Anthony, who is the guitar player and singer in the band. The other one who's writing and producing most of it, as opposed to me doing it in the previous song. So every song has a different history and different process, and we learned a lot from that, which I think will be really useful for the upcoming album.
Yeah, Anthony is also a kind of newer member in the band, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He joined us. Both him and André joined us during the Arteries recording. Before that, it was only Pablo and myself for most of the composition process and everything since 3 years before. And so they joined us while we were recording, and that's why we couldn't play any live show before that. The first live show was after Arteries was released, actually.
All right, very, very interesting, and especially listening to the latest single, the archive cover version of "You Make Me Feel." I think you have really achieved something massive with that, because like the sound is really absolutely massive, and this time the master was done by our mutual friend Luca de la Rosa from France, and man, that sound is just. And it sounds incredible. It sounds so huge and epic and massive. And I have to admit, I didn't know the original, but yeah, you definitely made it your own. And I think if that's any indication of future things to come from Omnerod, I think we're all in for something massive. Like I'm super excited just thinking about this. This huge epic sound that you achieved with that one single.
Thank you so much. That's really nice of you. And actually, I think this is the song personally I'm the most proud of that we've released, even though it's not our song from initially, but I think it sounds really good. And maybe it's because it's not our song, maybe as well. We had really great material to work on. And the production that you mentioned, it's interesting because I've been kind of struggling with myself, arguing with myself these last few years, because I wanted to keep a touch of maybe more vintage and organic element in the production. And I think that kind of also held us back a bit in how powerful and dynamic and massive we could sound in some contexts. And on You Make Me Feel, I actually wanted it to sound more modern and more heavy and more aggressive. And I think it worked pretty well. And we may work again with Julien, who mixed and produced the song on the third album, actually, because I think that's a sound that works great for us. And I'm looking forward to sounding heavy again, actually.
Make Omnerod heavy again, right?
Exactly.
And you also had a guest saxophonist on there, Jørgen Munkeby from Shining, Norway. Obviously, how did you get in touch with him, and how was the work? How was it working with him?
It's actually very simple. Like since maybe 10 years ago, I imagined myself playing on stage some music with Jørgen, playing some sax along with me, and it sounding awesome. So it was kind of a dream of mine to have some awesome sax on the song I was working on. And I didn't kind of reach out to him just because I wanted him on the song. The song, I think, actually needed sax parts, and it also didn't need any kind of sax parts. It needed something that was fit for the style we were looking for. So it was really the perfect opportunity for me to reach out to him. And that's something he actually does, like guest spots on any bands that or most of the bands I think that would contact him. And that's really great. So we talked about the song and how I figured the sax parts were in my head. Some parts were very loose. I let him go crazy and do what he does best. And some parts were a bit more specific, like the outro melody, which is the melody from the original song. I wanted it to be kind of close to the original melody. So that was kind of more specific, but the rest of it, he just went, he did what he does best, and it sounds stellar, awesome. It was like surreal to have him play on one of our songs. It was really great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you are enjoying this interview, please head over to theprogspace.com for more reviews, articles, pictures and interviews, all about progressive music. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. theprogspace.com.
You mentioned that also, regardless of what happened with the pandemic, that you guys didn't have the opportunity to play live much because you weren't a proper band for a long time.
Yep.
I actually wanted to ask you because for me, I'm located in southern Germany, and there's a fairly good live music scene going on here. But in the last years, up until March 2020, I was going a lot to the Netherlands for a lot of prog concerts, and obviously Prog Power Europe, the main progressive metal festival. But I also always have the feeling that Belgium, which is of course a close neighbor to the Netherlands and to Germany as well, that there's like, maybe, I don't know, maybe because it's smaller, that it's like, for once, I don't know many prog bands or many metal bands coming out of Belgium. And also, you might have one or maximum two, stops in a European tour of a band in Belgium, whereas there might be 5 or 6 in the Netherlands. So I would like to ask you, how do you feel is the music scene for heavy music, let's say heavy music in general in Belgium?
That's a good question. First of all, I'm not probably the most the best person to ask this to, because I'm not a proper metalhead, in the sense that I don't go to a lot of local shows, and I started like knowing more about the underground, or at least local Belgian scene, since actually 2 years ago, when we started doing shows and whatnot. And before that, we didn't really know a lot of people. At least I didn't really know a lot of people from the metal scene in Belgium. But from what I know, there are some very cool underground prog bands in Belgium, but they are fairly underground for some reason. And the music scene in Belgium is very, I feel, is very specific in terms of genre and in terms of what year we're in. Like there was a very big deathcore scene like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Then I think a lot of symphonic bands showed up a few years back, and now a lot of I think slam bands and things like that are making their way up as well. But it's always very specific, and I think that maybe something that doesn't help the Belgian scene is kind of the separation between Flanders and Wallonia, where, you know, people don't always go to shows the other side of the border, and they don't have a lot of friends the other side of the border as well, which makes networking a bit difficult as well. And I think it can.
When you say border, it's still the same country, but you also speak different languages, actually, right?
We speak different languages, and some people actually, which I find obviously really stupid, some people actually don't really want to talk to people the other side of the border, like which is kind of sad. But I think it kind of doesn't help the metal scene either. So that may be one thing that explains it. And in terms of prog scene, I think there's generally not a lot of prog bands for some reason. But I think it's kind of starting. There are a lot of young prog bands, which I think are really great, some of which we've played with. So hopefully, maybe in 10 years from now, the prog scene will be really strong in Belgium.
Yeah, sounds promising. The last years, I always like when I was thinking about Belgium and which bands in the heavy sector would be most popular these days. I think the first name that would pop to my mind would be Omnerod, which are obviously quite big in the sludge and doom scene, and also they were just on an amazing acoustic tour, and their acoustic live stream for the Roadburn Festival was just something else atmosphere-wise. Well, yeah, it's very interesting to learn about how the dynamics in the scene of a country, and of course it's always different what you see when you're inside, when you're actually living and working there, or if you're watching from an outside perspective.
Again, maybe as I'm fairly ill-informed, maybe some Belgian prog heads or metal heads will watch this and say, "What the fuck, he's full of shit and doesn't know anything about that, and that's bullshit." But maybe, I don't know. That was just my take on it. There's probably some better explanation out there.
Okay, if there's anyone from Belgium listening, you can tell us in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever you're listening and watching. Please let us know if there's any other cool Belgian prog bands that we should know about. So we already talked a little bit about the live situation, and we all hope that it's gradually coming back. It started already, but that the trend continues. But before that, you guys will also play at the Progspace Online Festival, or better said, that you have prepared something for the Progspace Online Festival already. What can you tell us about that? What can the people expect from your set at the Progspace Online Festival?
Well, if let's say that if we had played the online Progspace Festival like a year ago, it would have been very different. Maybe we would have been playing in our rooms from everyone's house, and we would have put everything together in a video edit or something. But here we had actually the opportunity and the chance that things got a bit better, and so we wanted to be in the same room. So we recorded basically a live show, how we would play it. So it's like basically being in the same room as us playing live, with our light show, or program light show behind us. And we asked a couple of really good, how do you say that, filmmakers, like people who, cameramen, to come and give us a hand, and they did a really great job. So hopefully the end result is good, but we wanted it to be like a live experience as much as possible, and not like a band playthrough, which is also great, but not what we wanted to do here.
Yeah, I can assure you, I have seen it. I'm in the lucky position that I was able to see it already once you sent it in to us. Now it's currently worked on to fit into the big festival video, obviously. But yeah, it looks and sounds amazing. I can't wait for people out there to hear and see it.
Thank you.
And it's going to be a really cool time on November 19th and 20th. Your set is going to be on the 20th. I think it's going to be the 3rd.
Yes,
maybe.
That's right.
All right. And I hope you guys will be able to join us in the chat as well.
Actually, the unfortunate part of that is that the 3/4 of the band, which is Anthony, Pablo, and myself, have another band, and we are playing on November 20th. So we won't be able to be in the chat. André, who is the 4th quarter of the band, might be here, and so he might be in the chat hyping everyone. But most of us won't be able to watch the stream live.
Okay, well, but at least you get to play live. That's awesome as well.
Yeah, that's great, yeah.
So, final question. We already talked about the 3 singles of the ongoing construction project, and the 4th one coming up. What are the plans? Are the plans to keep them as standalone singles to kind of document your progression throughout this period, or do you plan to include them on the upcoming 3rd album?
So the plans are actually to release an EP with all the songs from the construction projects, and the EP will be aptly named Construction and will be out hopefully in December. I really wanted it to be out in 2021 because 2022 will be for the third album. So the third album will be only new music, and it's pretty much composed by now, except maybe for vocals and some drums. So we will be slowly but surely making our way up to the demo sessions and studio and whatnot. I'm hoping for release of the third album maybe in the summer, something like that. And construction will be before that, as I said, and maybe we'll include some of the live recordings we did for the Progspace Festival as a bonus in the EP, to have something maybe more than the 4 singles that were released before that. And yeah, that's the plan. And I kind of really, it was a lot of work, but I kind of really enjoyed having the EP in between those 2 albums. We learned a lot from that. So maybe that's something I might do again between upcoming albums. Maybe not in the same kind of, in the same way or with the same process, but I was thinking maybe like the next EP could be something like acoustic or something like that, or just trying something out. Trying out something different every time, but still having proper Omnerod albums released like every 3 or 4 years.
Great. Yeah, we also have some absolutely stellar acoustic sets in the Progspace Online Festival. So if you like this kind of stuff, there's also going to be something for you. I mean, you will be able to see the whole thing afterwards anyway.
Sure.
On the after party or whatever of your show. It depends on which time you will be playing, and maybe you can still catch the headliners or something.
Yeah.
The video will, the premiere, the festival will definitely go longer than 11, so it's going to be longer than 3 hours.
It's starting
can tell you already. At 8 o'clock.
Starting at 8 o'clock. So okay, because we're playing this kind of the selection thing for a festival where there are like 10 bands playing like 20-minute sets, and we don't know as of yet when we will play. But if we play like at 6 p.m., maybe we'll be back home to on the computer to do something. We'll see.
Right, great. Thank you, Romain, for joining us here on the Progtalks. It was really cool catching up with you.
It was my pleasure.
Hearing everything about Omnerod's past and present and future. To you guys out there, as always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out Omnerod on their socials, get their music on Bandcamp. It's really worth it. Thank you for supporting us. As I said, you can also donate or get us a cup of coffee or tea. And of course, the links for that you will also find down in the description, as always. And if you haven't done so already, of course, give us a like, subscribe, thumbs up. We really appreciate your interest and your support out there. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Until next time, don't forget to listen to great music and keep spreading that prog love.
The Progtalks, produced by the Progspace. Main host, Rune Belsvik Reinås. Produced by Rune Belsvik Reinås, Vanessa and Matthias Kirsch. All graphics and animations by Vanessa Kirsch. Intro theme by Giuseppe Negri. Outro theme by Zach Munowitz. This was the Progtalks by the Progspace. See you in a week.